Okay, welcome back. We are in the Olivet Discourse in Matthew chapter 24. And Jesus is about to answer questions by four of his closest disciples. And those answers that he's going to give them, regardless of the questions that they ask, are going to revolve around the destruction of the temple, which we now know happened about less than 40 years after he spoke those words, and his ultimate second coming and the end of the age. And so we're beginning then in verse number 4 of Matthew 24. The very first thing that Jesus says in his reply to their questions, Jesus answered and said to them, "See to it that no one misleads you." And I want you to kind of take that statement and brand it into your mind, because that's going to be a recurring theme throughout the entire Olivet Discourse. Do not be misled. Do not be deceived. And what's going to be the major theme of the deception that will be the potential deception at that point in time? Verse number 5 of Matthew 24. "For many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Christ,' and will mislead many." Now, it is my understanding that during the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD by General Titus and the Roman legions, it was a protracted thing. They didn't just march through the gates because the gates were closed, and that's why Jerusalem was surrounded by a wall, was to prevent the very thing that they were trying to do in the invasion and the ultimate capitulation of the Jews in 70 AD. Well, they had sealed all the gates, and they set up siege works all around the city and various contraptions to try to breach the wall and so forth. All of these tactics are described by the historian Josephus in his book, The Antiquities of the Jews. And he describes various things that happened during that time. And again, it was long and protracted, and people within the city start running out of food and so on, and start starving, and the prices of things go sky high, and it's a terrible, terrible time. And during that time, there were those within the city who prophesied and said, God's going to deliver us in the last moment here. Christ is coming. And I understand that there even were some who made claims to being Christ. And so this verse, this warning of being misled, I think has some application to 70 AD. Not that we're all that concerned about it, because that's past and we're not going to experience that. We're more interested in the second coming of Christ. And as I said to you, I think there's a blending of prophetic elements here, that have not just application to the destruction of the temple and Jerusalem in 70 AD, but right before the second coming of Christ. So I think that we have plenty of scriptural evidence to be persuaded that this is something that we should be careful about too. And that'll come out in the Olivet Discourse. Watch out for false prophets and false Christs. Okay? And because Jesus is going to warn about this again in the context of what's going to be happening right before his second coming. We'll see that. Okay? So there's no doubt it has application in that sense. All right, we continue now in verse number 7 of Matthew 24. "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and in various places there will be famines and earthquakes. But all these things are merely the beginning of birth pangs." Now, is he talking here about what's going to precede the destruction of Jerusalem? Well, certainly there have always been wars and rumors of wars and nations rising against nations, and there's always been famines somewhere on the earth, and there's always been earthquakes, going around. And so Jesus is really saying that's not anything really to get excited about, in the context of, comparing it to a birth. That's just the beginning of the birth pangs, just the very beginning. So you got a ways to go here yet. So don't get all excited. Don't panic. Just stay alert. Stay alert, just like when the birth pangs first hit a pregnant mother. Now, look at verse number 9. "Then they will deliver you to tribulation and will kill you, and you will be hated by all nations because of my name." Now, can we say that that's a phenomena that preceded the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple in 70 AD. I begin to balk at that a little bit myself because I can't really say that the Christians were, or if you take it literally, just as the apostles to whom he was speaking, the four guys he was talking to, that they would be hated by all nations because of his name. I mean, all the nations, if we take that literally, it would seem that that would have to have application to the time of the end, the time that we know of as the tribulation period, the time of which, the New Testament speaks, the time of which Revelation speaks, when there's great tribulation. There's martyrs being made, and people are, being beheaded for the sake of Christ. That's what it sounds more like to me, a worldwide calculated persecution. And we know that during that time, there is going to be a calculated federal, worldwide persecution against those who are followers of Christ. Why? Because those who refuse to take the mark of the beast, the Antichrist, we are told in Revelation, they will not be allowed to buy or sell anything. There's going to be an economic system put in place that people have to have this mark to be able to participate in the economics of the world. It's described as a worldwide kingdom. It's described as a system that hates and persecutes the true people of God. And so I'm putting all the scripture together, trying to read this within the context of the whole Bible in order to arrive at what Jesus is actually talking about. Okay, now it gets more interesting here, and Jesus talks about this great falling away. And next time we get together, we're going to talk about that, because that could well happen in your lifetime and my lifetime, and you need to be ready for the great falling away. Don't miss it. We'll see you next time. God bless.
HeavenWord 7 is made possible by the financial support of viewers like you. Thank you.